We're not about church, prayer, on your knees. We're actually about life and living and what you do and who you are. And so I sort of look round my friends and I think, oh, they're all Unitarians, they just don't know it yet.
When I explain to people what a Unitarian is, I say that a Unitarian is someone... No, the problem here is that
the Unitarians, for me, are a unique spiritual holding place. Holding in the sense that they can support people in their own spiritual journey without imposing any restrictions of creeds or dogmas or beliefs on them.
Some people are atheists and some people are, kind of identify as Christian and some more pagan and things like that. And I try and open it up into a conversation.
When I explain to people who Unitarians are, I explain to them that Unitarians are people who come together in community to take care of one another and take care of the world. That it is much more important to believe in good, being good, doing good, than it is to believe in something supernatural.
Reverend Richard Bokey had a little statement on Facebook where he said, Unitarianism is the religion of oneness. And he said, we affirm the oneness of humanity, the earth and the cosmos. And I thought, that's fantastic.
This conversation really starts off as the number of congregations has started to dwindle, and in a very real way we've lost our sense of mission. We've already seen that our numbers are just dropping and dropping and dropping, as indeed are most other religions. The world today wants to be more secular, wants to practice its spirituality in a totally different way. We have the opportunity to do something very different and keep up with all the aspirations that people have and all the opportunities that are now available through the internet and different ways of working. What we're looking for really is people to become more active at a national level, so it has a wider impact on society as a whole. But what goes on at a congregational level is just as important. And we see a great opportunity for new ones to open. But don't expect them to be created in the image of the old ones, because they will be responding to the demands of new people in new situations.
I'm Lizzie at Hornby and I'm from Bridport Unitarians, and I am layperson in charge along with Angelica Kennard at the chapel in the garden. We've really tried to see what works and what could be done differently to appeal to the very creative community which is in Bridport itself. The way that we've done it is to open it wide to the wider community for positive living. We're here for you, this is yours, please come use it, use the building, take ownership of it and come to events and volunteer and just find your space within it. And people that would consider themselves spiritual but don't go to a church now come to chapel. As a chapel, we've become very involved in helping the refugee crisis, specifically with the jungle at Calais. People were feeling rather distressed and didn't know what to do. The chapel became the hub of that, of helping, of collecting blankets and everything that was needed. We put out on our Facebook page and in our newsletters and things what's needed each week and where you can donate. So we sent lots and lots and lots of vans. People were very generous. It was 14 of us went at the beginning of January for 5 days, and we collected €1,500, which went straight to food when we got there, went to the kitchens, and they were having a bit of a down moment before we arrived. Apparently it's a midweek, which is a very low point for volunteers, and we turned up with 14 people and €1,500, and they said, okay, this is fantastic, and they're really happy about it, and we were just happy to get involved. We didn't know what was needed, but we knew that somebody would give us a job to do. So it was chopping garlic or sorting the bedding that's come in and things like that. That was the main jobs that needed doing in the warehouse. The culture of our community is one of kindness. If the focus is kindness, not theology, you are creating something that just keeps going through the actions, which speak so loudly of who they are.
When it comes to social action, what gives credibility is where locally there is action on something specific that therefore gives you a right to speak about it, whether it's active support for the homeless, refugees, something of that nature. But one thing in particular has given us credibility is equal marriage, because it would be distinct from other churches around equal marriage, and it has allowed us to be known for that and to be mentioned frequently in radio and TV and the newspapers.
I'm Ed Fordham. I attend Rosslyn Hill Chapel up in Hampstead. Been attending now for 3-ish years. I was married there in July 2014 to my same-sex partner, and I creep in there fairly quietly most Sundays. The story that the Unitarian knows least well is the role of its own church in changing marriage laws. I got involved leading the street campaign, as we call it, for same-sex marriage, to change the marriage laws to enable everyone to marry, not just straight people, but also lesbians, gays, across the United Kingdom. That all happened at the same time as the minister at Rosslyn Hill Chapel, Patrick O'Neill, publicly came out in support of same-sex marriage in his chapel. And he got quite a lot of criticism for that. And so I made an instant connection with Patrick. Yeah, I didn't expect the campaign to come together with the religion, and it did, and it worked.
We will now hear oral evidence from the Religious Society of Friends and the General Assembly of Unitarian and Free Christian Churches.
I've heard of Florence Nightingale, I've heard of Charles Darwin, I've heard of Derek Macaulay, but most people haven't. I watched live the evidence Derek gave to the Parliamentary Committee on same-sex marriage. And as the Democratic Unionist Party laid into Derek for hating God and being anti-nature, Derek just calmly and rationally said he was advocating for the right of two people who love each other to be joined in marriage in a public place. And at that point I knew I was in the right church. People have got married in our churches for 400 years, but now everyone can get married in our church, and that's on the record. And we need to put Derek Macaulay's work up with Thomas Cromwell's work and say that's our church and always will be. People at weddings say happily ever after. We in the Unitarian church can say equal ever after, and I think that's quite important. We need to write the story. We need to write down the fact that Derek and hundreds of other Unitarians stood outside Parliament, wrote letters, wrote emails, went to see members of Parliament, went to see members of the House of Lords in the teeth of evangelical opposition. And we're one of the smallest churches in England, and it might be a little bit awkward, but we won. And the Queen, as the established head of state and the head of the Church of England, lost. And she still signed Derek's bill. And I want us not to boast, but just pat ourselves on the back consistently. We talk about Charles Darwin, his Unitarian roots, a lot. Well, actually, being fair and truthful to everybody in the society we live in is what's the right thing to do, and Derek won that battle for the church, and we don't know it and we don't tell it enough. It's a great story.
Have you ever heard of the Unitarian Church?
I have, but I've got no idea what it's about.
Unitarian implies that it's sort of all one, all religions are welcome, which is good. I commented on it the other day when I walked past. I noticed it. I was like, oh, that's good. A church that finally exists that welcomes everyone.
Even religions that appear as being inclusive of other religions, sometimes you find out that it's not all that inclusive. So I would probably think that in the future I would look forward to see that happening more, and people accepting each other's views for what they are.
Have you heard of the Unitarian Church?
I've heard it, but I don't know what it is. So I've heard that term before, but I don't know.
What's great about Unitarian Church is that it does things that relate to my world, even as a non-religious person. So I've played gigs there.
I've been to concerts. I've played gigs there as well, actually.
Would you go to a service then?
No.
I tell you what, I might go to service there, not as a religious person, but just to see what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, yeah.
And to meet some people.
I just read as I came past actually about, have spiritual beliefs or spiritual viewpoints.
If I was asked to join a church, in inverted commas, and support it either financially or
bodily,
and it was doing a lot of good for the community, I would. Would I want to spend 2 hours on a Sunday coming to church? No.
I think we have to break out of the church model. I often think it's fascinating the way, we have this really open, free, creative faith, which I really believe passionately in, where we don't tie people down to creeds and doctrines, which is it should be so attractive to so many people. And yet, the way we do ministry is a bit stuck in the 19th century. I'm John Harley, and I'm the youth coordinator of the General Assembly. And the youth programme caters for children and young people from 7 to 17. And we have around 10 main events a year at the Nightingale Centre in Great Hucklow. And many of them, they don't really go to a local church much on Sunday. That's not quite, it doesn't do it for them really. So really what we do at Great Hucklow is you could say it's their congregation. There's a natural age that many people get to, the university age, where they're going off into the world and they're exploring their lives in a myriad of different ways. I think we've got a real challenge, because some young people will come back when they have their own families or they're maybe looking for spirituality again, but we can't rely on that happening. I think we have to be a lot more proactive. I think we have to go into universities, to where young people are, and I'm recommending that we need to put some resources there, put some human resources there, and maybe find 5 campuses or 5 universities in the country where we think there's particular potential, possibly where there's a Unitarian minister or a Unitarian community there anyway, so that when we go in and make those connections, there's already an existing community that those young people can go and join.
I am Anna Jarvis. I'm a minister at Monton Church in Eccles. I am making some friends and some inroads in Eccles City College, which is close by, and that's been really exciting getting to know them. I discovered that there is no one in the college whose job it is to respond when there are things like the Paris disasters or anything like that. There is no response made. So I said, well, if something like that happens again, we'll set up a room and we'll hold a space. The other thing I'm going to offer is a once-a-month discussion group. It will be an open space for students to come along and say, you know what, I want to talk about this. And I think that encouragement to ask questions is something we really need. Even a bit of revolution is needed.
I came across a Unitarian minister at university when I was at Lancaster. I came across Verona Conway, who was a wonderful woman. And she just totally opened me up from being a sort of having rejected Catholicism to sort of oh no, there is a space for being for spirituality in your life. You don't have to be a Marxist atheist to to find your way in the world. Really, I think university chaplains, it would be a wonderful thing to do. If you want the next generation, that's where to go.
What are we going to do? Are we going to stay where we are and express our spirituality in the same old way, which will not be the way that younger people want to express it? Or do we join in and help them and share with them? But that's an uncomfortable journey, because we've got to change as well. One of the most important things I think about the vision is that it's given a sort of boundaries to what we're about and where we're going, And as a member of a congregation, and as a congregation, you've got to ask yourself, what am I doing to be part of that vision?